protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
We also have Secretary Mr. Kevin Andel and the Chief Education Officer Mrs. Angela Findlay, and we're talking basically this morning about CXC and the reopening of schools. So without any further ado, I will hand over to the Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Leslie, and I want to greet everyone in the room. Good morning, and of course, good morning to all those who have joined us for what I consider to be a very important press conference this morning, speaking about education, speaking about our students who are anxiously awaiting the final decision of the Government of Grenada as it relates to Caribbean Examination Council and examinations that our students here in Grenada will sit. Leslie and I want to share with those who are listening and to share with us a statement following which we are going to have some additional information from our permanent secretary, and then of course, as you indicated, we are going to hear in terms of questions not just from the media but also from persons who may wish to be part of the question and answer segment. Further to consultation held by the Caribbean Examination Council with permanent secretaries, chief education officers, and directors of education from all CARICOM member states, and following presentations made by Dr. Wayne Wesley at the 6th Special Emergency Meeting of the Council for the Human and Social Development on Education. The decision of the Council was that the most popular examinations in the CXC suite should take place within the period 29 June to 17 July 2020. While Grenada had intended that this period was, or indicated, that this period was not the best for students and teachers, we were placed in a position of having to carefully explore all possible ways of facilitating the examinations at the set time. The Ministry of Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information has since reviewed the local situation, and after consultation with key stakeholders, including the staff at the Central Ministry, or principals of primary and secondary schools, the Grenada Union of Teachers, members of the denominational school boards, parents and students, the following recommendations have been approved by the Cabinet of Grenada. For the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment, CPEA, based on the feedback from key stakeholders and the fact that the CPEA is not as high-stake an examination as others in the CXC suite of exams, the Ministry of Education recommends not having current grade 6 students sit the schedule assessment, but rather to have them transition to secondary schools based on a composite score for each student to be derived from the following. A, internal CPA assessment scores from CSEC. B, grade 5 minimum competency test scores. C, grade 4 minimum competency test scores 2018 and grade 5 2019, of course. For the Caribbean Certificate of Secondary Level Competence, what we call CCSLC. Although this exam is deemed important as a benchmark examination for all Form 3 students and is of great significance relative to the CARICOM HRD 2030 strategy and SDG 4, the feedback from key stakeholders point to many challenges that are associated with students having to take the examination this year. Given that CSEC assessment framework allows for students to sit the CCSLC whilst in higher grades, the Ministry of Education therefore recommended that the sitting of the CCSLC exams 2020 by students within the state of Grenada be deferred to 2021. For the Caribbean Secondary Education Certificate CSEC examinations. Although most feedback from key stakeholders support the sitting of the CSEC exams in 2020, some are of the view that CSEC examination should be deferred to the earliest possible time in 2021. If the Ministry of Education takes a decision to defer the exams to 2021, the accommodation of students for classes will be a challenge for all schools. Limited space and the demand it will place on their teachers are among issues of greatest concern. As a result of the foreseen challenges and the feedback from our key stakeholders, the Ministry of Education recommended to the Cabinet of Grenada and was approved that the CSEC examination 2020 be done in 2020 and should not be deferred to 2021. However, deferred arrangements for students with underlying conditions or special circumstances must be considered. The Ministry of Education therefore recommended and was approved by the Cabinet the following phased approach for the return of students and teachers in the current school year. This plan has been created to inform key stakeholders of steps to be taken in support of education for all students of compulsory school age. The actions are subject to the availability of public transportation for the commuting of students and staff to and from school each day. Of great significance is the Ministry's commitment to give all possible support to students and teachers, and particularly our students who are expected to sit those exams. Due regards for health and safety will be a priority. I therefore inform you of the phases in which this process would occur. Phase 1, which begins the 1st of June. Phase 1 includes the preparation for the return of Form 5 students only to their respective schools. Phase 2, return of students in CSEC examination classes only and their teachers to on-site classes at schools throughout Grenada, secondary schools that is throughout Grenada, between 9 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Phase 3, beginning the 15th of June, return of all teachers to their respective schools. Phase 4, beginning the 6th of July. In that phase, the Ministry of Education will facilitate 2 weeks of personal development activities with teachers, which would be done remotely. Of course, during that period, we would also review all of the protocols, existing protocols, as we look ahead. And that same period, 13th of July, actual CSEC examination begins. Phase 5, which begins the 20th of July, in that phase will be the vacation for teachers, 20th July to the 28th of August, and the last day for CSEC exam also fall in that phase, which is the 30th of July. Phase 6, which would be the 31st of August, begin the 31st of August. All teachers would again report for duties, and that would include in that phase the regular customary planning week for the new school year. Let me make it abundantly clear that during all of these phases, we will be guided by the Ministry of Health, the COVID-19 team, should anything change in our local circumstances as it relates to COVID-19. I now ask Permanent Secretary, Mr. Kevin Andel, to share with us briefly the protocols that would guide the return of students and teachers to school.
Thank you, Minister. The COVID-19 protocols for reopening of schools. I would not give you all of the protocols, but the major protocols. Before school reopens, the school compound must be sanitized according to guidelines approved by the Ministry of Health. 2, the Ministry of Education will contract additional cleaners and security officers, and all personnel would be oriented to perform routine cleaning and sanitizing according to approved protocols. 3, the Ministry of Education would provide a copy of the protocols to all principals who would share with their staff, and the Ministry of Education will ensure that an adequate number of toilets and hand washing facilities on the school compound are functional. Responsibilities of parents. Parents are encouraged to provide their children with hand sanitizers and other supplies which can help to keep them protected. All students will be required to wear a mask provided by parents. Parents or guardians are encouraged to notify principal through a print or electronic medium if children have pre-existing conditions which would make it impossible for them to be at school. Parents are also reminded, or parents are asked to remind their children that they should adhere to the protocols for social distancing at all times. Responsibilities of school administrators. Principals should present teachers and students with safety information and hold a health and safety briefing detailing individual and collective responsibility. All persons present on school compound must wear a mask. Principal will notify the Ministry of Education of students with asthmatic conditions. And also, principals should ensure that daily health and safety reminders are given periodically during the school day via the school's PA system or at the class level in the absence of a PA system. Principal would ensure that the classes and other areas of the school compound are cleaned daily with disinfectant solutions. Principals should ensure also that consideration is given to physical distancing, enhanced ventilation, contactless doors, and washroom facilities that allow for optimum health and safety practices. Principals would create a timetable to reflect staggered arrival and departure time for students to reduce chances of crowding. And last, in regards to the principal, wherever a tuck shop is to function on the school compound, this must be done in accordance with COVID-19 protocols for the preparation and or distribution of food items. Teachers also have responsibilities, and one of the responsibilities would be that class and subject register should be maintained daily so that contact tracing can be facilitated if the need arises. Poor health or illness. Guided by the Education Act or Labor Code, principals, teachers, and other members of staff with pre-existing condition should not report to work. Each school must have a room or space to accommodate any student or teacher who may be displaying any symptom of COVID-19 while in the school. A family member must be contacted immediately where possible. An arrangement should be made to have the ill person taken to the nearest health facility. The Ministry of Health would conduct random rapid testing of personnel in various schools as needed. An amendment. This protocol may be amended if requirements change or if new guidelines are presented by the Ministry of Health. I would like to say these guidelines would be presented to all stakeholders, so you would be able to read it in their entirety. What I strive to do is just to give a snapshot of what the protocol is presenting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you very much, PS. All right, so we have with us, as we mentioned earlier, Mrs. Angela Finley, the Chief Education Officer. Do you have a few remarks you'd like to make as well?
Good morning to everyone present and those joining us remotely. I do trust that all persons within hearing distance are safe and comfortable, and I trust that this would continue. For those who are not in the best of health, I do trust that you would soon be in the best of health again. Coming up with this guideline and the protocol has not been an easy task because, as everyone or most persons are aware, the situation is very fluid. But what I want to assure everyone is that at the ministry we are committed to doing all we can to ensure that health and safety is of paramount importance as we strive to facilitate the best learning opportunities for all our students. We commit to continuing to listen to concerns, and we do value them, and I trust that everyone will receive what has been presented in that light. So we do crave your continued support as we journey through this COVIDious period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Finley. Colleagues, so you've heard a lot from the panel here. We now invite you to ask your questions. Is anybody ready as yet? All right, so while they get themselves together, I have one question from somebody on social media. They're asking our pre-primary school students to wear a mask all day. And the second question, how are these same pre-primary school students expected to stay away from the teachers?
Okay, so that question is very easy because obviously the person asking probably did not hear all that was said previously. Only, and I want to repeat, only Form 5 students are required to report back to school. We have not mentioned any other grade, any other level of the school system, and we do not anticipate that at any other level students would be required to return to school before September. And we still cannot even speak to September because we await maybe a time closer to September to assess the situation, to decide if we are going to be starting the new school year in September. Only God may know the answer to that, but only Form 5s are expected back in school.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, so Sherry and Noel, good morning.
Good morning.
Go right ahead, we're hearing you.
Yes, I just want a little extra clarity from, I think it was PS Andal that made mention of it, in terms of teachers and students with pre-existing conditions that should not return to school within this phase. I'm asking, you would have the children in the fifth form who may have the asthma and so on. How do you treat those? Because some may feel that may be an unbalanced day at home and others are in a physical classroom. So how do you plan to treat with those?
Thank you, Sharon. A very important and vital question to be answered, but I'll pass it on to our Chief Education Officer as she provide the clarity.
Okay, as it relates to treating with students with pre-existing conditions, everything that holds under normal circumstances will hold. We expect that the parent would communicate that to the principal and likewise to the Ministry of Education in turn. And the necessary things would hold, such as there's the issue of being absent from examinations with a valid medical document. If there is sufficient information inside, CXC normally uses a prorating mechanism, and if it's a case where it cannot be facilitated any other time, then the child would just have to be graded as absent and seek to have it done privately or so in the following year, or if the school has space to accommodate that child to repeat Form 5, that would also be something for consideration.
I'll just add one more thing in addition to what the CEO said, that if there's a child with an underlying condition and that parent is of the impression that the child is well enough to return to school and the parent wants that child to do the exam, that parent also has a choice but must put in writing that they are allowing their child to return to school or to be able to do that exam. And of course, whatever support can be given, but we are advising that persons with underlying condition, that parents be mindful that they will be at additional risk.
Sherry, do you have another question? Go ahead, Sherry Ann.
Yes, I do. I have two others. One has to do with the CPEA. Know that it is confirmed that there wouldn't be an actual exam. Normally, come the second week of June, you would get a release as to the schools that the children would be placed in. How soon will a placement be made? And in terms of the mask, because it was only yesterday that the Minister of Health and so was speaking of proper masks, PS said that parents are required to ensure that their children have a mask. But would you have something special so they know what are the proper masks that the children should be attired with?
So I'll allow CEO to answer the question of the mask, which would be guided generally. But I just want to, and I'm trying not to remember the first question. What was the first point she made again?
The mask.
No, before the mask.
Sherry, can you just repeat?
The first question
the placement of the students.
The placement of the children.
Right.
How soon?
Right. And I just want to answer that by saying at this point we do not want to give any commitments in terms of timelines. As you would know, it is actually the first time we are faced with a situation like this. As you have noticed with all other things during this period, the ministry has really stepped up to the plate in terms of managing the situation. We prefer to say to you that we are going to do the very best we can without making a commitment in terms of time. Our objective is to impress you that we'll deliver in a timely manner, but we do not want to make a commitment at this time.
All right. Mikey, good morning.
Hi, good morning. With regards to students who show up on the compound not wearing a mask or not having a mask in their possession, what happens then? Would they be sent home, or will the school be providing masks to those persons?
Okay, as you know, we are guided by the protocol from the Ministry of Health. What we have in our back to school protocol states that parents are encouraged to have their child equipped with a mask or other face coverings such as a scarf, scarf or other suitable device, other suitable covering. So this is much as we can say for now, and we'll be guided by any further information coming from the Ministry of Health. The protocol would speak to that.
Do you have another question, Mikey?
I would probably just add one more thing, and that's outside of the Ministry of Education officially, to say that at the community level, we do understand that, you know, most persons may be selling a mask for as much as $10. I believe I've seen advertisements to that effect. And while we do say that if you don't have a mask, you can use a face covering, I did appeal to my cabinet colleagues that at the constituency level, if there's any support for very vulnerable families, I have received that commitment that in whatever way possible at the constituency level, very vulnerable families, efforts would be made to assist.
Mikey, any other question?
Yes, what about social distancing within the classes? I know that you spoke to that to some extent. I know that there are some schools that are smaller than others. So is it when there are big classes that the students will be placed outside of the classroom, or at all times it will be done within the building itself?
Okay, the principals are charged with that responsibility. There has to be that adherence, 6 feet distancing protocol. The desk and chairs are to be arranged in that order. It's spelled out in the protocol. And the other challenge would be during the break time. So during the break time, we recommend open space eating because the mask must come off at that time. And at that time, the distance would go up to 12 feet. So we're encouraging outside eating, packaged meals, so nothing in plates and platters, and 12 feet distancing during those periods. But in the classroom, desk seating, 6 feet.
Also to add, Mikey, one of the good things with relation to that concern, and I'm sure others, is that principals have been meeting collectively and they have been discussing, they have been looking at how all of this could work in the event that this decision was taken. So this would not be breaking news to our principals, I believe, because they have been putting plans in place just in the event. And just to say to you too, an additional measure that was put in place, if you notice when I gave the phases, phase 1 is when the principals and others report to school to start that preparation. So working out all of the logistical issues to ensure that by the next week when the students return, that all systems would be in place. So I think this is one of the advantages that we do have in this situation, that principals have already been looking at the logistics.
Okay, Linda Straker, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to all. My question, I have a number of questions. The first thing I have to do, I will ask about is the students, the minister mentioned of students going back to school, the Form 5 students, and I can safely think is for those who have to be doing CXC. Linked to CXC exam is the whole issue now of attending college. What is going to happen to students who want to attend college come September or whenever it's going to happen? And at the same time, what is happening to students who are supposed to be doing CAPE? Students at TAMCC who have to be doing CAPE. Can you tell us what is going to happen to them and are there any special protocols involved for those students who are at TAMCC and have to do CAPE?
Right, so let me say that a special brief will come specific to do with CAPE and the college and all that's happening there. But let me just say to you that the CAPE examinations will also take place this year. And of course, the college has been working very hard. The council has been working very hard. Facilitators, tutors have been working very hard, lecturers, in preparing those students. But we will want to do something special and separate for TAMCC. But I can tell you that the CAPE examination will take place this year. So you may want to add as it relates to the CSEC students transiting to TAMCC.
As it stands, TAMCC has already begun the application process for students desirous of entering the college for this year. And for the CSEC examination, we all know it's not normal time, so we do not expect that everything will go as before. But once the results are out, TAMCC will then utilize those. So the commitment of CXC is that the results for CSEC will be out sometime in September. So it does indicate a late start for students who may want to enter, but TAMCC is also committed to having them get provisional entry based on the scores that are already available for those students.
Do you have another question, Linda?
The question has to do, traditionally we know that the months of late June into July is graduation time. Are students going to be graduating this year in Grenada after the adjustment? Are we going to see any form of graduation, the exception of, I think the Anglican High School normally have graduation in December, which might possibly. But what about the other students who, what's the deal now with graduation and students?
Okay. So just to say, Linda, I would say that we would have a special consultation and special announcement on graduations. I do would want to. I know people would be very concerned about graduation, but I think they would be most concerned at this time with the examination. So once we cross that bridge, we're gonna get over to the side of graduation, and we will come back to the general public.
You have another, Linda?
No.
Sorry?
No.
All right. Anybody else, colleagues? Sherry Ann, go right ahead. Sherry, is your mic?
Yes, I just wanted to go back a bit to, I think it was Miss Finley's response as it relates to the way the students will have lunch in terms of the 12 feet and the no platters and plates. What I want to ask is, in this dispensation, does it mean that parents has to provide the lunch for the children, or is it that whatever will be sold in the schools will not be distributed in plates and platters? And if there are new protocols in terms of how the cooks and so will operate and the vendors.
Okay, at this time we are encouraging parents and guardians to go with the packed lunches, pre-packed lunches for their children. At the school, principals have also given a commitment to see where possible a tuck shop can function for the preparation of meals. But we are really encouraging parents to give the pre-packed lunches, because having to line up for lunches and all of that with the distancing, it would mean a longer time before every child can be refreshed, and we do not want to keep them on the school's compound for any longer than necessary. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, Sherry, that the tuck shop and the cook's operation will be guided by the protocol set out for restaurants and for places that prepare meals. It will be amended a bit so that it can fit into the school system most appropriately, but those protocols would be used to guide the preparation and distribution of meals at the various schools.
That's it, Cherry. All right, Mikey, go right ahead. You have another question?
Yes, I do. No, we cannot underestimate the fluidity and how deceitful the COVID-19 can be. Will students be required to undergo daily temperature checks?
So we are not insisting that daily temperature checks be administered to the students. What we are asking is that they be sanitized, hand sanitized before entering the compound. Of course, if we are able to secure those equipment within that time, we would go even further than we are committing at this time. But at this time, it is not mandatory that every school would do that before the students enter. But we believe with all of the systems in place, mind you that those protocols have been vetted by the Ministry of Health, the COVID-19 committee, and they feel satisfied that at this stage that those would be able to protect our students sufficiently. You are absolutely correct that this situation is fluid, and it's not impossible that within a week we can say that there would be an amended version to the protocol. As it is right now, our health officials seems to be comfortable that we can proceed as we are at this point with the protocols. They were approved by the Ministry of Health.
Do you have another one, Mikey?
Yes, let me help us to understand what happens at the end of the school day. So let's say at 2:20, 2:30 school is out. Do we have a plan to ensure that there wouldn't be any congregating of students or all the students trying to rush to one bus or rush to two buses at the same time, and then probably that would just defeat the purpose of the social distancing that occurred within the school compound?
So as it relates to public transportation, I am certain that sometime this week you would be hearing some protocols from the Ministry of Works as it relates to public transport, as it relates to that area where people congregate to catch a bus or to take the bus. And we would also be guided by those protocols as it relates to number of persons on a bus and all of that. So as you notice, a broad statement was made as it relates to our guidance by the protocols and the developments as it relates to public transportation, because everything we do will obviously be hinged on what decision is taken with regards to public transportation. As I said, an announcement should be made shortly within this week. But we are going to continue. We're asking parents to continue to guide students or their children as it relates to that. And the principals, the staff at the school will also be guiding immediately after school. No loitering would be allowed on the school compound. We expect that students would leave immediately after they completed, and they would be advised to get home within the shortest possible time frame. Additionally, we have solicited the support, and I know the Commissioner of Police, obviously, who has responsibilities as it relates to those enforcing of those regulations, they would also give full support to the Ministry of Education in ensuring that there's a zero tolerance for loitering as it relates to students, and I'm sure that would relate to others as it relates to those areas where persons would congregate for taking the bus to get home.
Okay, and in terms of what is managing the movement on the plant, on and off the plant, we are also looking at a staggering. So the first batch would come in about 30 minutes if where there's that, many students, let's say 100 students on the school compound. They wouldn't all come at the same time. So we'd stagger 30 minutes so that everybody would not have to have lunch, for example, at the same time. So the departure and arrival would be staggered to minimize the chances of crowding.
Mikey, that's it for you? Okay, great. Sherry-Ann, I see your hand. You have another question. Go right ahead. Okay, we seem to be having a little issue there. Sherry-Ann, are you ready? Okay, colleagues.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, Les, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you now, Sherry-Ann. Go ahead.
Yes, my final two questions. I just wanted to ask the Minister if there is a plan B, just in case members of the bus association doesn't agree with the protocol in terms of how many passengers can board the bus. That's in terms of getting children to school, if there is a plan B. And then I think it was P.S. Arnold who mentioned, and I'm asking this one on behalf of a parent. She said she thinks she heard P.S. said that if the child or children is experiencing flu-like symptoms, that the parent should be notified. But she says she thinks, based on the protocols, they said if you experience flu-like symptoms, you call the hotline. So you can just shed some clarity on that to the parent as to who should get the call first, and the plan B for the protocol for buses in terms of getting children to and from the institutions.
Thank you very much for that. The reporting by the principal is dual. The principal will contact the hotline as well as the parent, because you're dealing with minors here, and you have to take into consideration that the parents are the ones who have the authorization in many instances. So it is incumbent upon us to do this, to fulfill the national guideline and to also to fulfill which is law, that we contact the parents as well as the hotline. So who responds first? We cannot see, but that is what we have to do as the Ministry of Education, dual reporting.
Thank you, P.S. We have another question here from a viewer, Minister. In terms of renovations for schools, is this going to be done for September? Although we know things are going in phases.
Okay. So I'm going to attempt to answer Sherry-Ann's question first, and then to speak to September and renovation of schools. As it relates to the bus association and whether they cooperate or don't cooperate, I'm not in a position to say what they will or won't do, but I sit here trusting that the bus association would see the importance of this and that they would fully support. Should they not support, and I don't even want to speak to this because I believe they will, I believe that the Ministry of Education will be able to move to Plan B. And Plan B, I would just say, is finding a way to get all of our students to school, students and teachers where necessary, to get to school to get those exams completed. The renovation, of our schools. I just want to say that while we are in very difficult times, while there's so many things on our plate that we are dealing with at the same time, I want to commend all of those persons at the Ministry of Education who have been so committed, all of our stakeholders who have been so committed during this period, that indeed I can answer a question like this, that while we deal with the big issues, the challenges, we are also continuing a number of things as normal. So this week we're actually going to be having the sword turning ceremony for the expansion of one of our schools. So we do not want to wait on COVID-19 to decide to deal with or address critical issues as it relates to education and continuing all that we have started before. So as it relates to renovation, while this is not the subject of conversation, I would just say we will continue to do all that we can. Over $20 million has been secured in very recent times, and we have been working very closely with the Ministry of Finance, and those funds are now available for additional work on schools throughout the island. And all that is possible now, we are very thankful that the construction sector has opened, and that will obviously facilitate some of the work that we have to do there. And the government remains totally committed. forgive me if I am the one to say it, but credit must be given to this government for the work that has been done during this period and how we have been able, with the support of all of our stakeholders, to manage in these very difficult times. So even the conversation about students heading back to school, it required government to dig deep again and to commit significantly in a financial way to make this possible. You heard the Permanent Secretary speak about additional cleaners, additional security officers. Think about the amount of resources that would be necessary for all of our 19 public secondary schools, and we are quite prepared to assist the 2 private schools as well as it relates to preparation for this very difficult venture that we are about to take. May the Lord be with us as we go, but this is no easy task. But I'm very optimistic, I'm very confident with the level of support that has been committed from our various stakeholders. I believe we are going to do this, and we're going to do it well, and that our students will remain safe during that period. So I just want to say we continue to do all that we can do during this period, and this government is 100% committed to ensure that education, which is an absolute priority of this government, that education is given the necessary support that is needed so that we can ensure students continue to benefit and we continue to give the best opportunities to our students at the same time.
Minister, forgive me if we went through this, but somebody's asking, and I can't really recall if any provisions made for school-leaving students and private CXC students. Did we touch on that at all?
Right, so I'll allow the CEO to comment on the school leaving. Of course, had this been normal times, we would have been making some other statements on school leaving. We have not really addressed this, but just to give the public a general sense of where we are heading, we are moving away from the issue of the exam that we normally refer to as school leaving. We want to have the time when we can explain the why and the alternatives that we are presenting to those group of persons. But in the immediate, I'll ask the CEO to comment on what is it as it relates to those 2 issues.
Okay.
That is to do with the school leaving examination for this year, and also as it relates to private candidates.
Okay, so for private candidates, the centers would be up and running. The centers are already identified and officers are working to ensure, well, examining them, assessing in the same regard for the social distancing. So private candidates would be accommodated at centers as per usual for the CSEC exams. And as it relates to the school leaving exams, once again, based on the level of the number of candidates, the slant right now is towards the postponing of that assessment as well. And as you do know, this year it was gazetted that it was to be the last year for the exams, but because some persons are already committed to it, we would look at accommodating those students as soon as it is possible. Yep.
Thank you very much. Linda Straker, you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do have a number of follow-up questions. One was already answered, so I'm going to ask now. Can the minister tell us how much students are expected to be sitting exam, Form 5 students sitting CXC exam at the new time, as well as the number of students expected to transit from primary school to secondary school come September under the new system? And the final one I had here was the online classes. What's the feedback with regard to Form 5 students? Are teachers satisfied that Form 5 students would have been getting as much as possible as part of the preparation for the exam? Has the online classes really impacted, or there is a need to actually bring them back in the classroom to literally go engage in some remedial studies with them?
That's it, Linda. Mm-hmm. So the two questions in terms of figures and number of students specifically, I'm going to ask the CEO to give some approximate numbers there. With regards to online classes and the preparation of students, remember we have been in consultation with principals, we have been in consultation with students and parents in that decision that we took. So generally speaking, what I have been hearing is that we did complete the syllabus in most cases. Even before we went off on that break, we have been doing additional work, past papers and so on. And I believe that those weeks that persons are returning to the classroom would be sufficient time for that final preparation, recapping, remedial and so on. And I believe we should be okay in terms of our students. And I just want to refer back to a previous time, Hurricane Ivan, and we did see how resilient many of our students were at that time, and I don't believe we should underestimate our students at all. We give them all the support. We have not spoken to the psychosocial plan that is in place as it relates to all of our counselors being placed in schools. Each school will have more than one counselor on site daily, and there are classes and there are sessions rather that are designed specifically to give that kind of psychosocial support to all of our students. And I believe we can do this. I strongly believe we can do this. So CEO, if you can just give an approximate figure. Students for CPA, student for CSEC.
Yes, for both examinations, it would be somewhere in the region of about 1,700 approximately. Okay.
Thank you, CEO. Linda, any other question?
No.
Anybody else has any question, colleagues? We're approaching the 1 hour mark, so now is your time to get in your final question. Oh, Mikey, go right ahead.
I'm just seeking some clarity because I know in mentioning of the phases, one of the phases will start on June 1st, and that is the preparation for the return of fifth form students to the school. But it doesn't actually happen on the 1st because I know that that's going to be a holiday.
Well, just to say preparation can mean being on physical site as well as off-site, so I don't think the holiday. And we have some principals who are so committed, they would best be able to tell you what they also do on holidays. But we meant June 1st because we actually believe that principals are able to navigate. Doesn't mean that they have to be on site, but we wanted to have a full week there. It may be communication, it may be a number of things, but just to again commend principals, they are totally in support of this and totally in support of working with the ministry to make this happen. So it doesn't mean being in the school or on the school compound, but June 1st, yes.
Any other quick question, colleagues? Okay, I think everybody has exhausted all their questions. So, Honorable Minister, Mr. Andal and Mrs. Findlay, I'll give you an opportunity to say any final words that you may have, and then we'll wrap this up.
So, Leslie, I just want to close this off by saying that this is a very difficult time. We've had to make some very difficult decisions. We have had to take decisions in the interests of Grenada, in the interests of our students. We have invested millions of dollars during this period. Speaking about devices, we came to the public and we said government will do its best, mindful of the situation, not just here in Grenada, but throughout the world. And government was prepared at that time to commit to about 11,000 devices. Government went back to the drawing board, and with the support of all of our partners in education, we have been able to increase that amount to over 20,000. And so I'm making this point to say that we can remain very confident that this government, in this time, as we have traveled through difficult times before, we continue to travel through this COVID-19 era, this period of time, knowing that it will be tough, but knowing too that we are going to get through this together. with the support of all of our relevant stakeholders. And on that note, I want to specially recognize and specially express gratitude to all of our stakeholders, particularly on this particular subject that we are discussing. I want to recognize all of our principals who were part of the very difficult consultative period. I want to recognize too the Grenada Union of Teachers. We have been in consultation with them, and I want to thank them for all of their feedback and all of their support in the interests of the development of our children. And I want to recognize the denominational boards, the representative from the different church organizations who have been involved in the discussion on this very subject and for their contribution to the discussion. Very important to recognize our parents and our students. I was extremely impressed with the responses and the contribution during the consultation. Close to 500 parents and students were online meeting with the Minister for Education. I mean, it blew me away, the kind of contribution made by students, not just at the secondary school level, but also at the primary school level. And I just want to say, from all of this, I am extremely hopeful that we are going to rise and that our education system will be far better off because of all that we've been able to do during this very difficult period.
Well, I just want to highlight one important word in all of this. I should say maybe a phrase, maximizing opportunities. COVID-19 has presented us with unique opportunities, and I can say that the Ministry of Education and its stakeholders, we have endeavored to maximize as much as possible on those opportunities. We have seen people coming together for the good of the student. We have had persons calling and wishing us well. We have had persons praying for us. I can tell you that we have seen things happening during COVID-19 that we have never seen before. And I just want to remind us that we should, as much as possible, remember that the future of this nation is hinged on the quality of education that we give to our students. And together, we can do this. Together, that we can make it happen. And I'm a firm believer that we would emerge out of COVID-19 stronger and better. Thank you.
Yes, I also want to take this time to thank all staff at the Ministry of Education for the support that they have been giving, going the extra mile to make things happen, having to do things at very short notice and delivering of a high quality. I also want to reassure the general public that health and safety, as we think education continues to be of paramount importance. I want to also thank all those, and I am thanking all those who are reaching out in various ways, asking how they can assist, and we encourage others to come on board. It is a task that we cannot conquer all on our own. We do rely on the support of external stakeholders. And for those who may be still discouraged that the exam is scheduled for July and not September, as one student said during their consultation, do we know what September looks like? At least we know what July looks like. It's closer to stability now. PAHO is indicating they may be peaking. It has not yet, COVID-19 is yet to peak for the Caribbean. So which means if that's the case, peaking seems further away. So while July is uncertain, there will be greater uncertainty the further down we go down the road. So again, for those who may not be happy, this decision has been made, and we are working with the interests of all at heart, and we are committed to doing the best we can for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the panel, Honorable Emmeline Peer, Minister for Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information, Mr. Kevin Andal, the Permanent Secretary, and Mrs. Angela Finley, the Chief Education Officer. And thank you for all of you who have been viewing or listening. Colleagues, we also thank you so much. We have a lot of information to report on, and we know that things are progressing. So, of course, for those of you who ask questions pertaining to the pre-primary schools and the primary schools and all that, we will get to those eventually. But as the education officials said, we have to take things in strides and just do everything in a manner that we still ensure that everyone's health is of paramount importance, and we have to make sure that everybody is safe at this time. Thank you so much for viewing. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson. Have a blessed day, everybody.
Things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new national party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.